Now, on this slide, I want to show you the different study methods that can get applied when we're trying to link the neurobiology and suicide. And there's a few different methods that can get used, and they're used in different circumstances. So for those who have died by suicide, you can do a brain autopsy and you can compare them. Now, one of the critical issues in research well, in any kind of research, including research on suicide, is what's the appropriate control condition. And it wouldn't make sense to compare people who die by suicide to just anyone. So sometimes they've looked at others who've died suddenly of other causes, who might be younger, who might be, like people who died by suicide, sort of at a younger point in their lifespan, and that gives a better sense of the control population. So any abnormalities between the groups, you could say, might be attributable to the fact that they have died by suicide. Of course, one of the challenges is the question, well, was it suicidality that really distinguished the two groups, or maybe just something general about having people with suicidality are often have mental disorders, psychiatric disorders. So maybe it's not necessarily about the suicidality in particular, maybe it's just kind of general. So that's the value of this, is that you can see those differences and see them under a microscope. The shortcoming is sometimes it's hard to say, is it because of suicidality or is it something else about this group. A second one is MRI. And MRI's magnetic resonance imaging can give you a image that shows the brain structure of anyone. And this is done when people are alive, and you could see, you can compare people who attempted suicide versus psychiatric controls. Just like brain autopsies, you have to question, okay, well, who are we comparing them with? Well, oftentimes the studies generally compare those who attempted suicide versus those who have a mental disorder but have not attempted suicide. And the next type of study would be the fMRI. Like the MRI, it gives a picture of the brain, but the difference is that in an fMRI, you could see it. You could see the activity of the brain over time. Using magnets, you could see the ways that electrons in the brain sort of change, and the thought is that with greater activity, those electrons will flow through the brain more rapidly, and you'll be able to see the activity of the brain. So it can show potentially brain areas that have higher or lower activation among those who have attempted suicide or who have thought about suicide as compared to others. And those others, again, could be psychiatric controls or neurotypicals, people who don't have any mental disorders. A fourth one, and it's interesting, although there's not a lot of findings from this, you could do lab tests from blood workups to see, okay, what kind of different proteins or different chemicals or hormones are present in those who have died by suicide, those who have attempted suicide versus those who have not. And you can even look at byproducts of neurotransmitters to kind of see how neurotransmitters might be involved. And all that can reveal some insights into suicidality. And then finally, genetic testing, like mentioned before, trying to understand the differences in genetic codes and also epigenetics between people who are lower risk of suicidality versus those at higher risk of suicidality. Okay, so all those are study methods. They all reveal a slice of the bigger picture. And so we take that and can, and we've made a number of interesting findings using these various study methods.